Yeah, thank you very much. Welcome to Poli 341, Ancient and Medieval Political Thought. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the core courses that you have to contend with as far as political science is concerned. Political thought we consider is as the father of political science, really. Sometimes people argue that this is too theoretical, but there is nothing as good as a good theory. And that is why we think that this course is very relevant and you have to go through it. We'll try and demystify it and make it as interesting as possible. Ancient medieval political thought. Why do we go to the ancient Greeks among others when we are looking at political thought? We do so because they built institutions which were very resilient. They had structures which were very important. They had systems which could survive the test of time. And we'll go there because we also want to worship at the shrine of some key political philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, among others. So I want you to sit back, knowing very well that wherever there are problems within society, group of people, some gifted individuals will be interested in finding solutions to these problems. And that is what political thought is all about. So note that there's nothing as good as a good theory. Now we'll start this course with session 1, which deals with the nature and the scope of political theory. You need to be able to appreciate what the subject matter is all about. And that is why we feel that it's important that we go through this very important session. So we're saying that the session covers the nature and scope of political theory, the Greek political and social institutions, very resilient, because the Greeks had some political ideals which I think that we can go back and learn, retrace our steps and look at how they were able to maintain those institutions. So political theory, as I indicated, is basically an attempt by a man to find solutions to the problems of society. We want to assure you that political thought is not abstract, as many of you might believe. It is both normative, what ought to be, and what is in fact the case. What ought to be, we need to operate under norms. Even when you are given a handbook, you are given certain course outlines, you are given a course material, you are expected to complete certain minimum credit hours. These are norms, and we are going to measure your performance based on the norms that we have set. So norms are important. They really organize ourselves, they organize our thought, they organize our actions, and so that at the end of the day, society will have some standards to measure the performance of individuals. And then empirical, what is observable and what we can see and feel. So we expect that you will feel, you will fully commit yourself to this unit as it lays the foundation for the subsequent topics in this model, in this course. The session outline covers, we'll cover the following topics. We'll do some definitional issues. What is the definition of political theory, for instance? We'll draw a distinction between political theory, political thought, political philosophy, and political science. We'll look at political theory and political philosophy, political theory and political science. We'll look at some basic characteristics of political theory and then importance of political theory, ladies and gentlemen. So the topic 1 will be political theory. We know that, as I said, the political theory is man's attempt to consciously understand and solve the problems of his group life and his association. So it is really an intellectual tradition, and its history really consists of evolution of man's thought about political problems over time. Every society has problems, and that is why we say that some gifted individuals will be concerned with a disciplined investigation of the political problems that we find within the society. So the word theory comes from the Greek word theoria, means viewing, speculation, or contemplation. So at the most general level, political theory is a body of knowledge usually related to the phenomenon of the state. And don't forget that political science, our key variable is the state. Now, according to David Held, political theory is a network of concepts and generalizations about political life involving ideas, take note, assumptions, statements about the nature, purpose, and key features of government, the state and society, and about the political capabilities of human beings. You must also note that political theory seeks to understand and explain and then analyze the political phenomena and describe ways and means to rectify the shortcomings that will eventually occur within the society. Andrew Hecker, to him, a political theory is a combination of a disinterested search, because it is believed that those who undertake that rigorous search for solutions will do so in a value-free, value-neutral manner. So it's a disinterested search for the principles of good state and good society on the one hand, and a disinterested search for the knowledge of political and social reality on the other. We are interested in another definition. To Coker, W.C. Coker, political, government and its forms, or when political government and its forms and activities are studied, not simply as facts to be described and compared or judged in reference to their immediate and temporary effect, but as facts to be understood and appraised in relation to the constraints or constant need, desires, and opinions of men, then we have political theory. So one of the most comprehensive definitions is one that is offered by Gould and Cobb. To them, political theory is a subfield of political science, which includes political philosophy, usually concerned with the moral theory of politics and the history or historical study of political ideas. You need to note that it's a scientific criterion. It's a linguistic analysis of political ideas, the discovery and systematic development of generalizations and political behavior. Because in political theory, we will be also interested in political behavior, and we'll also be interested in the social milieu within which these political authorities wrote. So on the basis of the above definitions, one can conclude plausibly that political theory is concerned with the study of phenomenon of the state, both in a philosophical as well as empirical terms. So don't forget that I indicated that it is both normative and empirical. So it does not only involve explanation, descriptions, and prescription regarding the state and political institution, but also the evaluation of the moral philosophical purpose. It is not only concerned with what the state is, but also what it ought to be. So we are dealing with both empirical issues and normative issues. What in fact is the case, or what the state can possibly be. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to know that political theories concern themselves with a number of questions, and a few of these questions can actually suffice here, ladies and gentlemen. A key question that we want to pose, for instance, is that what is power? And here, when I talk of power, I'm talking of political power. Is democracy possible? What are citizens' obligations? There are times that people live within the state and they don't think that they have any obligations at all. We want to find out whether indeed citizens have any obligations at all. What are the obligations, the duties of citizens? Who should be a sovereign within a given community? In other words, who should be a leader within a given community? Do we live in a free society? That's the question. When does a government become illegitimate? Because legitimacy is like a reservoir, as we said, from level 100, that is like a reservoir. The higher the water level, the better. But when does the government become illegitimate? Is it when they are unable to address the needs of society? Is it when they have not been able to redeem their promises of ensuring that they protect liberty, liberties, right to life, right to liberties and properties? What should be the role of the state? Is it just to maintain law and order, healthy environment? What should be the role of the state, basically? What should be the role of the state? What really should be the role of the state? Should the state be interested in just maintaining law and order or offering employment opportunities? Should the state be interested in making sure that the borders and boundaries are protected against external invasion or external aggression? Why do people have to obey the state, for instance, or the sovereign, or the law? Do we obey because of fear, or we obey because we have done a deal with the state? Do we obey because as citizens, if we do not obey, then the state cannot really preserve itself over time? That is the first topic. Now, the distinction between political thought and political theory, political philosophy and political science is the second topic under this one. Now, what we need to know is that Political thought is a general thought comprising of theories and values of all those persons or sections of the community who think and write on the day-to-day activities, policies, and decisions of the state, and which has a bearing or which have a bearing on our present living. So these persons can be philosophers, they can be writers, they can be journalists, they can be poets, they can be political commentators. So whenever, and please take note, whenever and wherever political and social institutions exist, there are bound to be political activities as well as problems. And so whenever, and some individuals within the society, and let me say some gifted individuals within the society where these institutions exist, are really bound to concern themselves with these problems. So whenever there are political activities, ladies and gentlemen, note that there is bound to be thought. So political activities, we dare say, go hand in hand with political thought. So political thought is therefore defined as an aspect of the ways in which people in a given political area behave towards themselves and political institutions of society. Don't forget that wherever these institutions exist, there will be problems. So this aspect covers people's attitudes, usually people's values, people's beliefs, perceptions about the political phenomena, a given political phenomenon or political phenomena generally. So political thought deals with political matters in a manner that is meant to be relevant for political life. Therefore, its subject must be identical with the goals of good life. We live in a society and we want to find out from ourselves what type of life do we want to live. And fundamentally, I believe that the unanimous answer will be that, or one basic answer will be that we want to live the good life. And so when political matters or political thought, or these thinkers are going through the processes, they must be interested in how we can promote that good life, fundamentally. So political thoughts also involve the exposition of some political ideas. So when we consider some contemporary political issues, normally we employ ideas and concepts and ways of thinking about the language in which we have inherited them from the past. So we were talking about democracy, and when we are talking about democracy, certainly we'll go back to the Greeks, because to see whether the trajectories that it has trend, the checkered political history of that important form of government. These ideas and languages inform our understanding of concepts like citizenship and shape our social and political ideals fundamentally. So there's no better way of making ourselves aware of the precise meaning and nuances of the terms involved than becoming acquainted with the key thinkers who helped to shape the way we understand them. And that is why we will be worshipping at their shrines, for instance. So where political problems arise, efforts certainly are made to find solutions to these problems. So these efforts, you need to note, involve thought. So there cannot be a pragmatic politics without even thought. So in point of fact, some have argued that politics without or devoid of thought is the politics of madmen and mad women, if you like. So thinking about political activities need not to be intellectually abstract in order to fall under the general designation political thought. Well, thought on the other hand, political thought on the other hand, has no fixed form and can be in the form of treatises, speeches, political commentaries, among others. Political thought is time-bound, since the policies and programs of the government will change from time to time. Political theory, on the other hand, is the systematic speculation of a particular writer who talks specifically about a phenomena of the state. So this speculation is based on certain hypotheses which may or may not be valid or may be open to criticisms, you should note. So theory normally provides a model of explanation of political realities as is understood by the writer. So that is why we will be worshipping at the shrine of these philosophers. So if this is granted, then one can infer plausibly that there can be different political theories of the same period. So also political theory is based on certain discipline, be it philosophy, be it history, be it economics, be it sociology, among others. You ought to know that, lastly, you ought to know that since the task of theory is not only to explain the political reality, but also to change it or to resist change, political theory can be conservative critical or revolutionary. Baker, has argued that while political thought is eminent, philosophy of a whole age or whole age, political theory is a speculation of that particular thinker. So while political thought is implicit and immersed in the system of vital action, political theory is explicit and may be detached from the political reality of a particular period. Take note that all political activities aim at either preservation or change. So when we are desiring to preserve, we wish to prevent a change to the worse. And when we are desiring to change, we wish to bring about something better. And do note, nobody will want to change for the worse. So all political actions are guided by some thought of better or worse. So the thought of better or worse implies the thought of the good. That's why I'm talking about the good of the society. So every political action has in itself a directedness towards knowledge of the good, which is knowledge of the good life or of the good society. If it therefore implies that where men direct their effort at acquiring knowledge of the good life and a good society, political thought or political philosophy emerges. Now, political philosophy is called science of wisdom. Wisdom is about this world, man, or God. So the wisdom is all-inclusive and tries to explain everything. Generally, philosophy is concerned with the quest for wisdom and the quest for universal wisdom, the quest for the whole truth. It's not the possession of truth, but it's the quest for the truth. So when this wisdom is applied to the study of political phenomenon of the state, it is called political philosophy. So in the political philosophy, we are looking, it's a quest for political truth. So political philosophy is a serious attempt to replace the opinion about the nature of political things by the knowledge of the nature of political things. So in this particular course, ladies and gentlemen, we are not interested in opinions. We are trying to replace opinions with knowledge. So it concerns with the right or the good political order that we ought to live in. You ought to know that political philosophers are generally concerned with what is accessible to the unassisted human mind. Because some of them believe that the human mind is a tabula rasa. So how will society shape, for instance, the minds of an individual, and what can we know? Political philosophy is an attempt to truly know both the nature of political things and the right or the good political order. Political philosophy belongs to the category of normative political theory. And when you talk of normative political theory, we are talking about what ought to be the case, as against what in fact is the case. So this one deals with norms. Political philosophy is not concerned with contemporary issues, but with certain universal issues in the political life of man, such as the nature and purpose of political organization, the basis of political authority, the nature of rights, issues of liberty, issues of justice, and so on and so forth. So the distinction between political philosophy and political theory is explained by the fact that whereas a political philosopher is a political theorist, but a political theorist may not necessarily be a political philosopher. So all political philosophy is political thought, but not all political thought is political philosophy. Political thought is a such, indifferent to the distinction between opinion. Now, and the knowledge by the political philosophy is a conscious, coherent, and relentless effort to replace opinions about political fundamentals by the knowledge regarding them. So we are very much interested in political philosophy or political thought, searching for the truth among others. So for instance, David Easton, an eminent American political theorist or political scientist, has said that, insists that is normally considered a serious political theorist, but not a political philosopher. So, though theory deals with the same issues as political philosophy, it can explain them both from philosophical as well as empirical points of view. While political philosophy is abstract or speculative, political theory can be both normative and empirical. You ought to know that political theories is as much interested in explaining the nature and purpose of the state as in describing the realities of political behavior and natural relations between the state and citizens and the role of power within society. But political or philosophical explanations are theories too, but they are non-scientific. So political theory is concerned both with political institutions and the ideas and aspirations that form the basis of those institutions. So we can analytically distinguish between philosophy and theory. Yet if political theory is separated from political philosophy, its meaning will appear distorted and it will prove barren and irrelevant. Theory must be supplemented by philosophy. So the two of them are inextricably intertwined. They go together. The distinctive feature or trait of any political philosopher is that he knows nothing. And it is this insight into our ignorance concerning the most important things which induce them to strive with all his power for more knowledge. So you have to note that the distinctive trait of the political philosopher is that he knows nothing. So by political thought, we understand the reflection on or the exposition of political ideas, and by political ideas we may understand and politically significant fascism, notions, species, among others. So the history of political thought is part of social milieu in which politics itself has occurred or has evolved. It is concerned with appreciation or attempts with appreciation and attempts made by some gifted individuals like Plato, like Aristotle, Machiavelli, Hobbes, Locke, Kant, among Descartes, and so on. So the rationale is to gain understanding and have knowledge of political experiences of environment, not only of their society, but also of other societies. So that is one of the things that you need to do. So political thought, political philosophy, as practiced in the past, differs from the scientific type of theory because it was normative rather than positive. Even though in 400 you will know that there's very little difference between normative political theory and then empirical political theory. So scientific theory is concerned with positive facts. That is what is the case, what we see and feel. Whereas normative theory is concerned with establishment of norms or ideals, standards for which society must be measured with. Government tells us what ought to be, in fact, the case. Let's look at what political science is and political theory and theory and politics. Political science includes different forms of speculation in politics, such as political thought, political theory, political philosophy, political ideology, comparative politics, public administration, international law, political methodology, political policy analysis, organization theory, among others. So basically what you need to know is that political theory is a branch of political science. Political theory is one of the subfields, as I say. However, when used with emphasis on science as distinct from theory, political science refers to the study of politics by the use of scientific methods, in contrast to political philosophy, which is free to follow intuition, and so on. So political theory, when opposed to political philosophy, is political science. So take note, political science is concerned with describing and explaining the reality. So we are looking at the study of the state and its institutions, the relation between states and its citizens, power dynamics within the state, the role of power, for instance, within the society. Who has it? How is it distributed? And so on. So political theory, on the other hand, is not only concerned with the behavioral study of the political phenomena from empirical point of view, but also prescribing the goals which states, government, societies, and citizens ought to pursue. So within the society, we pursue certain goals. Do you want a free society? Do you want a corruption-free society? Do you want a society where everybody has the liberty to pursue his interest or her interest? Are we looking out for societies where opportunities exist for our people? Are we promoting freedom and justice? Indeed, do we have freedom at all? Do we have justice? These are things that political theorists will be interested in. So political theory basically aims to generalize about the right conduct of political life and about the legitimate use of power. Don't forget that power is the most central concept in political science. So thus, political theory is neither pure thought nor philosophy nor science. While it draws heavily from all of them, yet it is distinct from them. Contemporary political theory is trying to attempt to synthesize, between political philosophy and political science. The third topic, which is the characteristics of political science, is what we are going to consider next. Ladies and gentlemen, you ought to know that political theory is an intellectual and moral creation of man. That's one of the things that you need to know, first and foremost. Generally, it is a speculation of a single individual who is attempting to offer us a theoretical explanation of the political realities, the realities of society. So every theory is by nature an explanation. And if in the political theory, a number of attempts are made by these thinkers from Plato onwards to really offer explanations as to how we can pursue the good life. Our political theory is largely an attempt to seek the truth as the thinkers sees it. And it is usually told a treatise, for instance. The second point that you need to know is that political theory contains an explanation of man, society, and history. So it proves the nature of man and society, how society is made up, how it works, what are the important elements, what are the sources of conflict in society, and how can they be resolved, for instance. These are things that are the basic characteristics of political theory, for instance. Third, the political theory is a discipline, it's discipline-based. It means that though the phenomena which the theory seeks to explain remains the same, largely the state, the writer may be a philosopher, he may be a historian, he may be an economist, he may be a theologian, he may be a sociologist, he may be an anthropologist, etc., etc. So it is discipline-based, so we can have them in several other areas. Political theory not only comprehends and explains the social and political reality, but also actively engaged in what? Hastening the political process of history. So the task of political theory is not only to understand and explain, but also to devise ways and means to change the society. It is important that political theories are interested in what indeed a good society will look like. And so their prescriptions and their suggestions and their recommendations usually go to improve society, for the better. As Lasky put it, the task is not merely one of description of what is, but also a prescription of what ought to be. So we are describing and at the same time prescribing. Finally, political theory also includes political ideology. And ideology is in a simple language means a system of beliefs, values, and ideals by which people allow themselves to be governed. So you find a number of ideologies in a modern world, such as liberalism, Marxism, socialism, among others. So all political theories from Plato to date reflect a distinct ideology of the writer. So you find political theory is associated with explanation and evaluation of political phenomena. The last bit from this one, on this sub-issue, will be the importance of political theory. Now, political theory is a form of all-embracing system of values which a society adopts as it deals as an ideal with a view to understand the political reality and, if necessary, to change it. So it is important that sometimes the ideals of society can be changed, and as I said, it can be changed for the better. If the society has problems, as we indicated, individuals will be interested in finding solutions to those problems. Now, the importance of political theory lies in providing a description of the political phenomena, B, a non-scientific based upon philosophy or religion, or a scientific based on empirical studies explanation. It deals with proposals for the selection of political goals, political action, and finally, sometimes we make moral judgment as what is good, what is bad, what is evil, what is right, what is wrong, and so on. So the significance of theory also lies in involving various doctrines and approaches regarding the nature and purpose of the state. the basis of political authority. You understand? The vision of the ideal state, best form of government, the relation between the state and the individual, and the basis or the basic issues such as rights, liberty, equality, property, etc., etc., justice, fairness, and so on. So the task of political theory is to study and analyze more profoundly than others the immediate and potential problems of political life of the society. And of course, in the process, try to look at ways by which these problems can be resolved, especially because they know the consequences of those problems. Well, political thought provides systematic thinking about the nature and purpose of state and perhaps its key agent, the government. Then the last point that we will have to indicate on this slide, on this session, is the fact that it helps us to really understand the nature or the socio-economic system and its problems like poverty, violence, corruption, etc. So corruption and all these things can be studied from a political science, political theory perspective. So it is misleading to conclude that political theory is just normative. One cannot deny the fact that many of the political philosophers sought to establish an ideal form of society. It is, however, false to conclude that this was their only preoccupation. They were also very much interested in how the good society can be designed. So traditional political theory, apart from being normative, has two related objectives: clarification of political concepts, and then, of course, the critical evaluation of the opinion and beliefs of the thinkers, like Plato, Aristotle, Aquinas, Hobbes, among others. And they sought to apply these philosophical thinking to ideas about the state and the society. So this brings us to the end of our first session on this course. Thank you very much.